Wanting to build a cheap deck to use on Magic the Gathering Online, but not really sure where to start? Let's go fishing today for a Pauper Dredge deck, a fun deck in the best budget format of Magic that can be put together online for less than 3 tickets. That's right, only 3 tickets. That's cheaper than a tub of OxyClean, which you may need to clean up with once you smear your opponents across the floor. Let's build this deck. Starting off, we have a few early game plays, a playset of Putrid Imp, a nice 1/1 for 1 that has a nice discard engine that can give it flying, and if we can get enough of a graveyard going, we get a 2/2 for 1 black mana. Sure, it won't be able to block anyone, but that's not our point. Next up is Wild Mongrel, a 2/2 for 2 that also has a nice discard engine, kind of like a running theme here, only this time our Poochie gets a power buff and becomes any color that we want it to until the end of turn. This card isn't subjected to the once per turn hoopla, so we can dump our entire hand to power up this guy to maximize the damage. Our next card is one of our Dredge creatures, Stinkweed Imp. For the low price of 3 mana, we get a Stormcrow sized body with almost Death Touch and Dredge 5. Dredge is our best friend for this deck. Whenever we would draw a card, if our little buddy Stinky is in the graveyard, we can instead send the top 5 cards of our library to the graveyard to return him to our hand. While the imp itself isn't anything to brag about, the value in this card is the grave shenanigans. We want to get a lot of cards into our graveyard, and this card can help us out there. Now that we have a bunch of stuff rotting in our graveyards, what's next? I'm glad you asked, kind viewer. We have some Delve cards. These are some powerful creatures that have a kinda high mana cost, but we can remove cards from our graveyards to lessen the cost by 1 mana for each card exiled. Starting off, our Gurmag Angler is our biggest fishy, being a possible 5/5 for 1 black mana, which is kinda dumb, but we love it. We'll run a playset of him. Next up is Hooting Mandrills, a 4/4 with trample that can be cast for as little as 1 green mana. I'm going bananas for this value. Finally, for some added evasion, we have Sultai Scavenger as a 2 of in this deck. Being a 3/3 with flying makes it rather susceptible to most forms of removal in this format. Now for some other spells. We've got our creatures in the grave, let's put some spells to work as well. A set of Grisly Salvage is perfect to get what you need into your hand and put some more treats in the grave for the Delve creatures later to nom on. Since it gives you either a creature or a land, more often than not it's going to get us something we want. It's also an instinct, so you can use the salvaging on your opponent's turn as well. Next up is a set of Commune with the Gods, which lets you dig for an enchantment or a creature. Unfortunately, we don't run any enchantments in this deck, so if we don't hit any creatures, then we pretty much just get 6 cards in the graveyard. For some creature removal, we have a pair each of Disfigure and Doomblade. If your opponent has any creatures out, we can fix that. Next, a new card a la Eldritch Moon is a playset of Grapple with the Past. For 2 mana, we can dump 3 cards, then return either a creature or a land back to our hand. This is an amazing amount of value for only 2 mana, so we definitely are going to try this card out in this deck. And last but not least, we have a Chainer's Edict to get some double value out of that tasty flashback mechanic and get rid of some of your opponent's creatures. Our land base is in 2 colors, those being green and black. Since we've only a few cards that are actually requiring green mana, we have a lot more black mana sources. 4 Jungle Hollow will give us some nice life gain upon entry, and 4 Evolving Wilds will not only get us the basic lanes that we need when we need them, it'll also add some cards into the graveyard. To round out our land base, 4 forests and 9 swamps will be our basic lands. 21 lands done and done. Now for that sideboard action. Obviously you can change out certain cards to better suit your meta, but these are just some recommendations that we're going with. 3 Duress will help mess with your opponent's hands, and a copy each of Chainer's Edict and Doomblade for a little additional removal if the one in the main board isn't enough. 3 Naturalize to counter any artifact strategies. We also have our own form of pseudo removal board wipe thingy in the form of a pair of Shrivels. 2 Fairy Macabre will help eliminate graveyard strategies like our own. We need to be prepared should we be faced up against another Dredge deck. Finally, to make use of all that graveyard goodness, we have 3 copies of Gnaw to the Bone. I'll happily gain a ton of life and make red decks have to work twice as hard to get my life down. That's it for the build of this deck. The main goal of it is to dump a lot of cards into the graveyard as quickly as possible to get fodder ready for those delve creatures. We then remove a ton of them for our delve creatures and then swing in with those delve creatures. We also have some more smaller value creatures. Most of them have discard engines attached to make for some early game hits if we need them. The deck features my favorite color combination of green and black. One of the best things about this deck is its ability to turn board removal and hand destruction into a benefit for you. A deck like Mono Black Control that'll take care of your field and your hand will only be giving us a hand in filling our graveyard with the stuff we need for our delve creatures. We have bigger creatures than Tron Affinity decks, and unless another deck outpaces us like Elves, we can generally have some big creatures on the field by the time that they start having cards to attack us with. Do you want this deck today? This deck can be yours for the low price of about 3 tickets. You want to be more than just the online Pauper guy? For only 25 real-world dollars, you can build this exact same deck in paper magic. I hope you enjoyed this deck tech. Let me know your thoughts on Pauper Dredge down there in the commentaroni section down below there. Lastly, if you're a newcomer to the Planeswalker Project, welcome to the party. I hope you consider hitting that subscriber button and becoming part of the community. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go get some more deodorant because my Stinkweed Imp kind of made the room smell stinky.